Hi, this is Kim, and you are watching ECT TV, episode 12. Today I'm going to teach you how to make this charm pendant with wire, and you'll see it has some really pretty turquoise bead dangles, and I'll tell you where to get them. But I wanted to also say that for this and really most of my tutorials, I really encourage you to use your own ideas and your own materials, things you might already have, or go searching. Like, these are from Happy Mango Beads, and they have a huge variety of beads that are very unique. And so maybe you don't like the actual beads I'm using, maybe you'd like to use another kind of bead. That is awesome. And I'm using copper wire today, but maybe you'd like to try silver instead, and that's great too. Jewelry making is really about expressing yourself and being creative. So while I'm showing you how to make a specific necklace, I really encourage you to use what you learn and make it into something that is truly unique for you. Alright, let's get to the tutorial. Alright, so here is what you will need for this tutorial. You will need turquoise nuggets. I got these from Happy Mango Beads, and on my website I'll give you a link to them. They are pretty cool. I really like them. And like I had said before, you can use any beads. Now, I originally did this tutorial on my website, and I had used 4 beads, but I'm going to be making this pendant just slightly smaller, so I'm just going to use 3 beads for it. And then you need copper wire, you need 20 gauge, and then you need about 6 inches of 18 gauge, and I actually only have about 5 inches left of 18 gauge wire, which I didn't realize, so that's the main reason I'm going to be making my pendant a little bit smaller. So just to show you that you can adjust depending on what you might have on hand. And then you're going to need wire cutters, chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, and then like a second pair of pliers, which I'm using bent nose pliers. You'll need something to wrap the wire around, so I'm using my ring mandrel. You could try like a broom handle or something similar to that. And then you'll need a few, these are 4mm copper jump rings, and we'll need 3 of those. Alright, so let's start. So to get started, we're going to be using 20 gauge wire. This is half hard copper wire. It's round. You could try using other types of wire if you want. And I'm going to be making my own spiral head pins for this piece. So I'm going to cut 3 pieces of wire to 3 inches each. On each side of each wire, I'm just going to make sure they're flush cut. So that's using the back of the wire cutters toward the side that you're cutting. So I'm just going to do that on both sides. And you probably shouldn't your wire fly like I just was. I don't know what came over me. Alright. So we're going to start, I'm going to make a spiral head pin. And I've shown this before, but I'll quickly show you again. So you're going to get your round nose pliers. And I have 2 marks on my pliers, so one is closer to the end, one's closer up here to the handles. And I use the smaller one to make smaller loops and like to start my spirals. So to start, you're just going to hold the wire in your round nose pliers where that mark is. And I just used like a Sharpie to make that mark. And yes, it will rub off, and really it doesn't matter exactly where the mark is as long as you use it for your project. So as long as it's the same throughout your project, then you're fine. So you hold the wire in between the pliers, and you just make sure that the wire's not poking through, but it is all the way up to the top. And then you're just going to wrap the wire around the spiral of the plier while twisting your other hand away from you. And so you go as far as you can, and then you let go and readjust, and you make sure that you're still lined up on that line and that your wire is down against your pliers, and then you just complete the loop, and you end up with like a little P. Now you grab your chain nose pliers and hold that loop in the middle of them, and then we're just going to make a spiral around it. So I hold that loop, and then I'm just going to push with my finger the wire up, and then readjust and push it up, and you just kind of go around and keep doing this little by little, making a spiral. And then I like to go around twice. So this wire is back to where this first wire began. Go just like a little bit past there, and that's what you have. And then you want this wire to be straight above your spiral, so you just take your pliers and bend so that it is straight. So then you repeat that for all 3. You make your 3 head pins. And now we're going to make bead dangles out of these. So you grab your bead and slide it onto the head pin you made. And then you grab your round nose pliers, and we're going to make a bead dangle, which again, I've shown you how to do this in other episodes, but I'll kind of quickly go through it here. And for these, I'm going to use the mark that's closer to the handles on my pliers. And then you just hold the wire just slightly above the bead, and then you bend the wire down toward you, and then in between the bead and the pliers. This bead's a little bit weird, and that's kind of the fun of these nugget beads. It's a little bit, you know, rugged and weird at the top, so we just kind of deal with that. And I just need to readjust a little bit. Alright, and so then you just want to make your your loop straight above the bead. So you can do that with your round nose pliers while it's still in there, or you can take it off those pliers and just use your chain nose pliers and straighten it like I just did. And then you're just going to hold that loop in your chain nose pliers. And then I'm going to use bent nose pliers, and you just wrap around, pulling tightly. And like I said, this isn't like your normal everyday beads, so you just adjust. Oops. And you want to go around a couple of times. Alright. And then I'm just going to trim off the little bit of excess I have there. And then just make sure that the wire is not poking out at you. Kind of make sure it's, people always say tucked in, and just make sure it's not poking out at you. So that is your bead dangle. And now you just repeat that for 2 more. Alright, I have my 3 bead dangles, so I'm just going to set them aside for now. And now we're going to go to our 18 gauge wire. Now, like I said, in my original tutorial, I call for 6 inches, and I actually realized I only have, I don't know, just over 5 inches. So I'm just going to adjust, and you can use whatever you want. So I'm just going to use my ring mandrel, and the only reason I'm using it is because it's round and I can form a circle around it. And so I'm just kind of forming a loop here, and if you're using about 5 inches or so of wire, I'm using about the 10-inch mark to make my loop. And if you have 6 inches, I went around the very bottom. Alright, so I'm just kind of made my loop, and now I'm just going to twist just like that, and then I'm just going to stick this back on here to make sure I still have a circle. Alright, so now I am going to make a little decorative spiral for the top of the pendant. So we're just going to do it the same way as we did for the spiral head pins. And I'm just making sure this is flush cut. So again, just hold the wire in between the 2 barrels of the round nose pliers and start with a P loop, and then hold it in your chain nose pliers, and then we're just going to spiral around. And for this spiral, I'm just going to keep going till I kind of get back to where I made my twist. Okay. And I kind of got this all out of shape again. So I'm just going to slide it back on there and get it back into a circle again. Which, that is a good part about using a ring mandrel that maybe other things you might try to use you can't do so much, because it's graduated, so you can easily slide the wire back on. And now I'm just going to take this spiral and twist it down here. Okay, so I twisted it back down so it's down on the top here. And I still have this loose wire. And I'm just going to make a wire wrap loop up here. And normally I would use this bigger mark, but I don't have a lot of wire, and this wire is relatively stiff, so I'm just going to make a smaller loop. And that's just the same as when you make it for the top of a bead dangle. Okay, so now we have the pendant part here. So we just need to add our bead dangles to it. So I'm just going to grab a few 4mm jump rings, and that is how I'm going to attach the dangles to this pendant. And if you need help with how to properly open and close jump rings, I actually have a video on my YouTube channel that is dedicated solely to that. So you can check that out if you need that help. And I'm just adding these on here. Oops. Sometimes my pliers will slip, and that's okay. Alright. So that is the pendant itself. Alright, so now we have our pendant. So now we just need to add it to a chain, or maybe if you have a satin cord or something like that, which is what I'm going to add mine to. But I just wanted to show you something first. This loop I made is the same way as the pendant. Alright, so now we have our pendant, and it is ready to be added to a chain or to like a satin cord or something like that. But I just wanted to show you something first. When I made this loop, I made it the same way as the pendant. So in order to add this to a chain or a cord, I would have to add a jump ring. Or what I'm actually going to do is just take my chain nose pliers, grab a hold of that loop, and twist it so that now I can just slide it right onto a cord. And it is ready to wear. I just wanted to remind you that if you come to my website at KimberlyKoehler.com, and the link will be below, you can find this tutorial in photos and words. And if you sign up for my newsletter while you're there, I'll send it to you in PDF form so that you can easily download it and print it and take it to your work table and use it. You can find my Facebook page at Emerging Creatively Tutorials, and I will see you next week.